Hello everyone, this is part 19 of What If Naruto Was Betrayed and Planned It All, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Break. They moved through another portal. What greeted Sasuke on the other side was their own world again, but with Kaguya keeping Takizawa pinned to the ground with her bones and nearly Kichigai. He used a substitution jutsu to replace himself with a stone between the two, forming a shield from one of his truth-seeking balls and blocking Kaguya's attack. He brought the sword of Nunoboko down on her. She dodged to the side and tried SA sword of bone into his side. Orochimaru redirected her arm with a swarm of snakes. She got rid of them and shot into the air, sending down a barrage of ash bones on them. Sasuke let the fires of his Susanoo form to protect everyone. Realizing it was going to take more than what she was giving, she sent hundreds flying at a single spot. The armor began to crack, but Sasuke reinforced it with his truth-seeking balls. Kichigai ran to the side, out from under cover, and jumped into the air. He formed the hand signs for a Kaiten jutsu before sending a fireball at Kaguya. She stopped sending bones and blocked the fire, absorbing it and healing any wounds she had obtained thus far. She then moved her arm and readied a bone to Kichigai. Sasuke saw it coming and ran forward, his Susanoo trying to move also and protect Kichigai. But the being of light refused to move fast enough. He put all of his chakra into his legs and burst forward. Out from under the cover of his Susanoo. The bone fired as Sasuke broke ground and shot into the air. Things slowed down as the bone approached Kichigai's head. Naruto, I once tried to do right by you for having saved me from the darkness. I tried to protect our home and wound up blind to the truth even after everything else. I know I haven't always made the right decisions up to now. He grabbed Kichigai's shoulder in a tight grip. Whether I was right, or whether I was wrong, may not even matter in the first place. However, running up against my sins like this, all of the choices I've made up to this point today. He pulled Kichigai back towards the ground, placing himself in the way. Being able to rest for someone is something I'm glad for. The bone impaled his shoulder, turning the arm itself and Sasuke's shoulder into ash. Even some of his ribs were gone, exposing his insides as he fell back towards the ground. He landed on his feet but stepped back to maintain balance. Sasuke, are you a moron? That was meant for me, you bastard. Kichigai shouted, running up to him. Sasuke gripped the space where his shoulder once was. His Susanoo formed, one arm gripping the missing area to keep it closed and minimize B loss, though B still poured between the fingers. The other arm formed with the sword in its hand and tried to S Kaguya. She created a portal and disappeared, reappearing behind Sasuke and ready to S him. Her hand was stopped, the elbowbone only an inch from Sasuke's C. There was something going on inside the tree. She turned and rushed that way. Orochimaru and Takizawa rushed after her, leaving Kichigai to look at Sasuke. Go, Sasuke said. I'll be fine. Just don't let her stop whatever it is that Naruto is doing. Kichigai nodded. Thank you for saving my life. If you S before we return, I wish you luck in the next coil. And then Kichigai too was gone after Kaguya. As Sasuke sat down on the ground, he heard rocks cracking and moving to accommodate something. You were glad to S for someone else. Do you feel it redeems you? We shall see. Naruto's voice said. Sasuke turned his head to see two Narutos. The clones he had had before to help fuel his Edo Tensei. Sasuke smiled. Here to see me off. The clones sat down. We did it, one said. We did? Sasuke asked. Yes, we did. Sasuke's B loss had made him less diligent, and more tired. But regardless, a part of him knew, no matter how much he wanted to believe it, that Naruto was full of S. He smiled anyways. We did it. The sun was setting in the distance. It's quite a view, Sasuke said. The clones nodded. Best seats in the house, one said. Sasuke sighed. You ever wonder how things would have been different? How our lives would be different if this and everything else hadn't happened? Sure. The other clone said. I know you really never started with a family and I did, but now, the family that matters. I never had one, Naruto. Never had children. Never left something to endure my passing. Not like you've built. There will be time enough for that now. Sasuke chuckled but groaned in pain. I think that ship has sailed. What about you? Certainly you've thought about settling down when this is all over. A clone nodded. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Not sure I'd be much good at it, though. Sure you would. I think you would make a great father, old friend. A clone gave a suppressed laugh and an, aha, sound. I'm serious, Sasuke said, sounding more tired with each passing moment. Think of how proud your kids would be, telling everyone that the dad is the Azukage Naruto Uzumaki. I don't know about that. There was a pause. Not everything I've done is something to be proud of. His mind wandered to Kichigai when he was first there and the people he had tea. Sasuke sighed. God, it feels like years since I just sat down. I think you've earned a rest. Sasuke, a clone said and asked as Sasuke's head lolled to the side. At his name, he picked his head up as if being woken suddenly from a doze. I'm awake, he said. The clones knew he wouldn't be much longer, but with everything else, they couldn't just make it grim for him. Stay with me, one said. We're almost through this. Sasuke almost laughed. Don't pity me. I'm happy I no longer have to pretend. What do you mean? I was when I stepped onto the battlefield. Whether it was Kaguya or you wouldn't have let me return to exile. The moment this was over you'd have me yourself. I'm just happy I don't have to pretend anymore. Pretend what? That I'm not here to There was another pause. You did good, Naruto. You did good, Sasuke said, almost in a whisper. He was so tired. No matter what you've done that you might not be proud of, I'm proud to have called you my friend. Even if it was so long ago. His head then hung as if he was asleep again. Thanks, friend, a clone said before looking at Sasuke. Sasuke, he asked. He was the rest of the body quickly being affected by the ash bones and crumbling away. One clone looked at the other and they nodded. They needed to prepare. There wasn't much time. Break. Kaguya slipped inside the tree, entering a new world devoid of creation but being creation itself. The infinite Tsukuyomi. As she entered, trying to find the one who had entered before, somehow holding the power of the Juubi, she could have sworn she felt something leave her, but she gave it no thought. Realizing that the one she sought was trapped in a dream, she turned her attention to the only one that had followed her that wasn't. Break. Orochimaru stood in a white void. He had followed Kaguya and Takizawa into the tree, and he was sure Kabuto and Kichigai had followed him also. But he was alone. He looked around and saw what he almost described as afterimages of millions of people. What is this? What in the world is happening? He took on a shocked look. It can't be. But it is, Kaguya said as she walked up beside him. It is exactly as you suspect. The infinite Tsukuyomi can't work from nothing. It traps their minds within extradimensional space. Trapped in a series of universes that are created instant to instant as they are perceived. A labyrinth in which conscious beings are trapped within the infinite series of alternate dimensions created by their own past experiences and preferences. As long as they have intelligence and chakra, they will never be able to break free. Black Zetsu added. Break. Naruto sat beneath the tree, Shino and Hinata at his sides, and Anko standing at Shino's side. They passed around some snacks as they watched the sun set over Azushio. They had lived peacefully within the village for so long. Peace had reigned under the village and the unity it had long ago brought to the world. It was time for the celebration. 2.5 decades this peace had survived. He looked over as Obito crested the hill, a bag of steaks over his shoulder. Itachi was right behind him, pulling the grill. Some of the others had shown up not so long ago and everyone was preparing for the party. The crest gun was in the distance, loaded to the brim with thousands of fireworks. The Bahamut Sky Fortress could be seen in the distance, lights of various colors flashing in the windows as the people who still had to man it were throwing their own party. They had taken a week to set up the lighting and music. Naruto saw it as this great and beautiful thing. Even Kurama, his orange fur practically glowing in the sun, was laying down nearby and smirking as he talked with some and laughing at a joke someone told him. Naruto looked over at Kurama and how he sounded. He was happy. They all were. What they had been built to last. And so it had. But as he turned back and looked at the sunset, he almost felt like something wasn't right. This was all right, but it was off. Like a haze blocked what had once been. Not that he was unhappy about that. He loved this. He was surrounded with friends, with great food and a good time to celebrate this. To celebrate everything they had ever wanted. Shrimp, steak, chicken, corn, potatoes, ramen, and a myriad of other foods permeated the air with their smells of being cooked and made. The sunset. It was so beautiful. But he had been thinking about something else, hadn't he? Something felt off. As right as everything was with the world, it wasn't quite so. The air was a degree off. Not wrong, off. It was too perfect. Ideal. It was a day one could only dream of. But here it was, wasn't it? And it was beautiful. He looked over and saw his friends talking and laughing. He smiled. Hinata gestured for him to come over and join the group, to laugh, to talk, to get some food, to celebrate with everyone. And he stood up to join them. Bliss was right there within his grasp. But as he strode over, about to step out from under the tree, a hand laid on his shoulder. And another on his other shoulder. He turned and saw Hinata and Shino standing behind him. And unlike the ones who were eating and enjoying themselves, they had battle gear still on. They had smiles, sad ones rather than happy. But their eyes showed happiness. They were not relaxing or celebrating. They were still ready for war. And he understood what he should have from the start. Don't forget, Naruto, Shino said. You're the method to our madness. You can't stop here or we stop with you. You are the one that makes all of our big talk more than words, he said with a smile. Hinata walked over to him and placed her hand on his sea. Your soul is right here, along with all of ours. You can't keep wasting time here forever. You can't forget what you still have to do. Naruto nodded and everyone around them, Kurama, Obito, the other Shino and Hinata, they were all gone. So was the crest gun and the Bahamut. Let's get going, Naruto. Hinata said, embracing him. Just don't get distracted by the what-ifs, should-haves, and if-onlys. The one thing that you choose for yourself, that is the truth of your universe. Shino said. Yeah, you're right. Naruto said. You're exactly right. And it's not just us. Hinata said. It's the rest of us too. Shino said, turning to see an army people wearing the Azu symbol standing behind them. Hiruzen, Naruto's parents, and even the other Jinchuriki stood there also, having been absorbed when his Edo Tensei seal had spread across the ground. Well then, we better get going. Naruto said. Yeah. Hinata nodded. He turned back as they all turned into light and entered his sea. He raised his fist into the air as his old combat armor formed over him and he returned to his normal age. Every change that had occurred reformed so he was as he truly should have been, wiping the dream away entirely. And then even the field was gone. The hill, the tree, it was all gone. Break. Naruto walked within the tree, having entered the dream world of the infinite Tsukuyomi but freeing himself of the shackles it put on him. He could feel every pulsing vein of the tree around him. The power of every human being on earth flowing through the air. He could see every person, or more accurately, feel. The desires were at his fingertips. It was time to set them all free. Each and every desire. Every life, soul, and heart. It was time. Break. Sasori and Deodara stood within their art studio. Though they had always argued about whose was true art, they had long since decided to agree to disagree. They had worked side by side to create one of the most beloved art studios in the world. Deodara stood in front of a large clay sculpture, looking at it quizzically as he was covered in clay himself from his work. Sasori was working on painting a new puppet he was working on, equally quizzical as he chewed the end of a brush and was covered in as much paint as Deodara was clay. They looked at each other for a moment and laughed. There was a knock on the door before an oddly familiar man walked in. He wore a strange robe and carried himself like a leader. Almost like someone they should know. And it began clearing the cobwebs from their minds. I'd like to buy your art, Naruto said. And I'd be honored if you two artists could come work alongside me. Sasori smiled as he became fully aware. I'd have it no other way, Lord Azuki. Deodara was about to ask what was going on before he too understood and gave a grin. Sign me up and lead the way, Naruto. We have enemies to blow up and turn into art. I was hoping you would say that. They too turned to light and joined Naruto as he shot into the sky as a streak of light. Break. May Terumi stood at her wedding, finally about to have a man for herself. But before the ceremony could finish, someone tapped her on the shoulder. Who would dare interrupt the most important day of her life? She turned and was suddenly looking into a television screen showing her in a red dress and winning an award. It changed to her being named the Mizukage. Then to her at a peace summit with the other Kage all getting along and discussing trade. And then again to depict a man standing there telling her how beautiful she looked in her dress, about to marry her. And then the screen turned black, her own hand having turned it off. She stood up straight and saw Yagura standing there, holding the television. Thank you, she said. She flipped a kunai into her hand. Well, I'm off then. Yagura smiled and looked into the sky where a golden light was moving through the sky. She was now standing on top of the Mizukage tower and dressed ready for battle. She turned into light and shot into the air, flying towards the light in the sky. Break. Obito stood dressed as the Hokage with Kakashi and Rin at his side and was looking out the window of his office. He saw the light and knew what it meant before he himself was a light flying through the air. Break. Anko stood at the front of a classroom full of brats, but her attention was brought to the window. She remembered why she was here. There was no time to waste on petty dreams. She had to help her friends. And then she was gone. Break. Temari stood behind a stove, working in a restaurant before placing plates of food down in front of her brothers and parents. But when the real Gara laid a hand on her shoulder, she knew that this wasn't meant to last. Things always needed to change. And now they would. And she was gone. Break. Akira stood in his home, sitting on a couch with his sister and parents. None of them having ever their life still together. His father teaching him the ways of the dragon contract, his mother teaching him how to control the black chakra that came from their bee. He looked over to his sister as she read a book and thought that nothing could be better than this. But like all dreams, his too ended when a golden light shone through the windows and his mind was clear. Goodbye. I love you, mother and father. I will see you again someday. Break. Kakazu knelt in a field, a little girl in front of him and placing a crown of flowers on his head. Here, daddy, she said. He picked her up and spun her around as he stood. She giggled in glee and he smiled in pure happiness. But when he stopped spinning, he turned towards his wife. She was so beautiful in his eyes. She had a happy but sad look as she looked at him and then towards the sky. He too looked up and saw the light streaking through the air. He set his daughter down and she ran towards her mother. Now I get it, he said as his body became schooled and his clothes changed back to what they usually were, as he turned back to normal. And I was having such a sappy dream too, he said, taking one last look at his daughter standing with his wife. He gave a sad smile before shooting into the air. Break. Konan, Nagato, and Yahiko stood there, looking out over the Akatsuki as it was meant to be standing before them, ready to protect. They had achieved the dream. I'm truly sorry to interrupt, my fellow Uzumaki, a voice said. But there are some matters that would benefit from your attention. Nagato turned around and saw Naruto standing there. Break. Orochimaru looked around and though it was minuscule picked up on something interesting. He gave a knowing smirk and chuckled. Why are you laughing? Oh, it's nothing really. I'm sure you already know and it's part of your plan. Tell us, Kaguya said. Oh, all right. Well, here I am, which means that the infinite Tsukuyomi definitely doesn't affect Edo Tensei zombies. Yet that boy brought hundreds of them in with him. And here I stand able to interact to some degree with this world. So what happens if those zombies start waking people up? Kaguya's face turned to one of shock and fear as the entire world within the tree began to glow. Everything trembled. Orochimaru snickered. That boy, as annoying as he was, he never ceases to amaze. And then he too was swallowed by the light. Kaguya left the space of the tree and shot into the sky, sending an arm upwards to ready a massive truth-seeking ball in preparation for whatever was coming. She looked and saw that while bees still hung from the tree, they glowed with the same light as before. She felt the same supply of chakra she had always been receiving, but it seemed less, as though she was not the only one being supplied. And then, what had been coming for her emerged from the bark of the tree. It glowed at first while different voices spoke one at a time. We become one. With our minds, our hopes, our hearts, our dreams, our strength, our art. An unusually obnoxious voice rang out. And then it all took form in one glowing body. The creature was amazing to behold. Pristinely white hair flowing in the wind, long enough to normally have several feet dragging on the ground. Its hands, attached to longer arms and with longer fingers with claws, were engraved with seals unmistakable as Naruto's Hiraishin formula. 5 unusually large truth-seeking balls floated behind it with 2 floating around its left hand. The other hand held Naruto's black and green blade. Horns sprouted from its forehead while its eyes looked as Kurama's new Rinneya Sharingan had. Its clothes were part of its skin with black pants and no shirt. But its cloak was Naruto's, now as pure white as his skin on one side but the black side discolored and gray from the changes to his skin. Even the other symbols were present as dulled engravings in the skin. But the text that had once read, Shodaima Zukage, was gone. It was now replaced with new symbols that represented all of the tailed beasts. The new creature had these possessions of Naruto's, but his features were smoother. Different. A new face but clearly seemed male. Perhaps because that was the host body's traits maintaining dominance. Tails, Kurama's new tails, swished from under his cloak as he stood there. His mouth opened to speak, an overlapping voice of different forms emerging. Now then, look upon my work, ye mighty, and despair. His eyes locked on Kaguya just before she threw her large truth-seeking ball down at him. He sent a single truth-seeking ball at her own, each cancelling each other out in an explosion. His own quickly reappeared behind him, but there was little time to notice this fact as he opened his mouth again, light emanating from inside. Destiny Destroyer. A molten sphere fired from his mouth, expanding instantly and launching at Kaguya. It shot through the smoke that still hung in the air. Without time to dodge it, and shocked as it came suddenly from within the darkened air, she opened a portal in front of herself, making it appear somewhere in the distance where it shook the earth. He shot forward, grabbing her by the end and spinning, sending her back towards the ground. He followed her, driving a fist into her stomach but not doing much as she pulled her knee up into Naruto's face. Before either could correct themselves, they crashed into the ground. While Kaguya bounced back and righted herself, landing on her feet, Naruto rolled around on the ground for several feet before landing on his hands and feet. His jaw let out a snarl before disappearing in a flash and reappearing behind Kaguya. He delivered a burst of punches into her back, disappearing again as she turned towards him. He reappeared in front of her, uppercutting her jaw and sending her back momentarily. He disappeared again, reappearing and disappearing in a burst of appearances all around her. The moment he reappeared next to her again, he was almost impaled as her body exploded with bones, turning herself into a human pincushion and trap for Naruto to run right into. One was barely any visible distance from his eye, his eyelids closing on it when he blinked. He backed up and formed a hand sign, 2 rock walls forming on either of Kaguya's sides and then closing on her. It kept her held for only a moment before she shot out the top with an explosion of stones, the bone protrusions having retracted or fallen off. Naruto growled a moment before a shroud of chakra enveloped him. It quickly took on Kurama's form but more humanoid, with 2 eyes, and a presence that gave off more than one signature. Not only that, but its size easily rivaled that of the Juubi. Kaguya again formed the sword of Nunoboko and flew towards the construct, it through the forehead. He yelled and thrashed, giving Kaguya time to form several small truth-seeking balls and send them flying inside its gaping maw. As they exploded, he gave of no reaction other than to shout 2 words. Destiny Destroyer. The attack sent Kaguya back as she tried to avoid it. While succeeding with the first, the second sphere hit her on and created a blinding light. Once vision was restored, Kaguya was again floating there before the massive monster. Her form began to swell before she had entirely transformed into the Juubi. Break. Naruto stood within his mindscape, somehow easily directing this new form with only a portion of his attention. Most of it was here as he walked down the corridors that housed the millions of people who had made up this power. Though he wanted to attribute it to time moving more slowly in here. To him, the fight had only just begun with the 2 truth-seeking balls colliding. He stepped to the side and opened a door. He had so many people to talk to and so little time. Walking over to a table, he sat down with Hinata, Anko, and Shino there. So, was this your plan all along, Naruto? Shino asked. It has been for a while. Naruto replied. But not always. I realized during the Cage Summit that some things can't be solved with logic, much as I wish it weren't true. Sometimes you need to find some way to make yourself the strongest person on the field. Sometimes it's the only way to solve a problem. But how did you do all this? It seems almost a little impossible. Hinata asked. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, but the fun stuff is always impossible. By the time your enemies realize what you're doing isn't physically possible, they are already 12 kinds of S. He then sighed. But the concept is actually more realistic and logical the more you think about it. Objects and people can be sealed into sealing arrays as well as Bayu. And you can access the chakra of Bayu that is sealed inside of yourself. So it's really just a matter of applying the same principle to people being sealed inside of other people. And much how Jinchuriki gain attributes and abilities from their tenants, I had no doubt I could do the same from every single person within this seal. My gamble paid off. Break. Naruto's new form drove a fist towards Kaguya's eye, but the fist itself was caught by one of her hands. He stepped back and hunched over before his back L open. Full-scale black rain. Hundreds of metallic shells, glowing with energy, fired into the air and came back down in a full-scale bombardment. Each explosion brought a roar from Kaguya. He then moved back into a standing position and got into a particular stance. Veins bulged around his eyes as he charged back in and used 2 fingers to jab Kaguya in the sea. Break. So even in this form you can use the Byakugan like the Hyuga in the seal? Hinata asked. Yes. This form is stable but volatile. Any energy it releases is intense, Bayu form or human. But I know nothing of its limitations or if it even has any. All I can tell you is that if it does have any, we are nowhere near them. Break. Kaguya's form roared in pain from the jab but didn't let it deter her from mounting a counter-attack. She wrapped an arm around his and flipped him over her head, instantly reshaping the land as his body crashed into the ground. Break. Naruto had spent several minutes talking with Hinata, Shino, and Anko before apologizing and leaving the room. He had so many other people to speak with. He opened a door and entered in, Orochimaru sitting in the middle. I wondered when you would be paying me a visit, child. Orochimaru said. You've been expecting me. We become one. I believe that, with our minds was a part of that. If that were entirely true I wouldn't need to be here and speak with you. No, but I understood one of your desires was to speak with most of the people you had absorbed. So what is it you want to speak with me about? Naruto stared him down. I've looked through some of your memories, recent ones anyways. One of the benefits of being the host I suppose. Or perhaps that and having been the one to reanimate you. Who knows? What I do know is that you expressed quite the sentiment to Anko about reanimating friends and Kabuto about him not being controlled and choosing his own path. I'm a twisted man that uses people for my own ambitions, but even I have morals, strange as they may be. Naruto hummed in thought. Given a second go-around but with the same memories, given a new chance, what would you do? What are you playing at, boy? Just answer the question. I'm really not sure. Probably continue my experiments and proceed in my quest to learn every jutsu. What about your bid for immortality? Merely a means to an end. To obtain every jutsu. Being S shows me just how overrated being immortal is. It gives me a different perspective. Interesting. Why are you asking these questions, boy? Tell me, what if I gave you a new lease on life? Break. Naruto slid back after blocking a blow from Kaguya. It was a simple exchange of blows that just went back and forth with no one gaining advantage. He reabsorbed his Bayu form and crashed into the ground. He rapidly moved over the ground and began running up Kaguya's body. A truth-seeking ball formed into a buzzsaw-like shape and L into the beast's F as he ran up her body. Her hands came down, trying to crush him like a fly. He was almost impossibly quickly up to her head and about to ram a new truth-seeking ball into her. Before it could make contact, the eye and the entire Juubi form disappeared as Kaguya also reverted to her human form. She launched an ash bone at him, about to impale him in the belly. He took advantage of Orochimaru's abilities and discarded his old body as it was impaled. Break. Obito. What are your thoughts on all of this? Naruto asked. I think it escalated very quickly. It's out of hand, Obito said. But it's also a fitting end to all of this. It's almost like she's fighting herself. You two are almost equally matched, fueled by all the chakra in the world. But you have so much more at your disposal. However, you may have the Hiraishin, but she also has the ability to open those portals. It's anyone's game. Break. Kaguya used her 80 Gods vacuum attack, but she was dodged every time. But the same was said as Naruto's fists became consumed in blue fires that took the shapes of lion heads. He charged in, swinging and missing with each blow. Each attack the two threw spoke volumes of the devastation with the sonic booms from every punch Naruto gave to the ground, breaking any time one of Kaguya's attacks hit earth. Naruto then redirected one of his attacks, letting his fist unclench and hit Kaguya in the sternum as just a palm. He then curled his fingers and pushed forward. He forced her skin and clothes inward as he made a handhold out of her sternum. She almost screamed in pain at this, but she wasn't give the time as he used this hold to spin and then throw her into a nearby rock jutting out of the ground. The field is no longer smooth or even. Neither this on which we fight or the playing field. Kaguya was standing again before disappearing through a portal that Naruto quickly followed her through. On the other side was a rocky and mountainous world. It was Kaguya's core dimension. Naruto saw Kaguya not far away but putting distance between them. She was gathering chakra from the infinite Tsukuyomi and he could tell she was feeling better every second. He burst forward, the ground breaking under his movements and tearing up to accommodate his momentum. Kaguya turned around, a truth-seeking ball in her hand. It formed a shield that Naruto almost crashed into, jumping into the air and over her instead. As Kaguya turned around to face him, he held out his arms, his skin flaking into thousands of pieces from the top few layers, but not diminishing in any way from what was there. The flakes folded and morphed into millions of insectoid creatures and swarmed Kaguya. Break. Naruto sat down at a bar that someone had taken the time to form in the mindscape. It was full of Azu shinobi, many of whom had originally been from Oto. He was quickly surrounded by Tayuya, Jirobo, Kidomaro, Sakan, Akon, Jugo, and Kimimaru. One of them passed him a drink. He laughed and swirled it around in the glass. So are we just drinking my subconscious? Everyone's. What's going on here? He asked. They all laughed. None of them really knew, but it was still fun. A lot of them were looking up at a screen, seeing Naruto and Kaguya fighting. So what's the master plan? Tayuya asked. Take out this bee and live happily ever after. Language, Tayuya. Jirobo said with a smirk. Tayuya laughed mirthfully. Shut up, fatso. Naruto laughed along with the rest of them. Yeah, that's pretty much the plan. I don't need to remind any of you what it took to get this far, but I hope you all enjoy it. Break. Naruto landed a punch to Kaguya's face, but in response, a truth-seeking ball exploded in his own face. The smoke cleared, Naruto standing nearby with only a few scratches and some heavy breathing to show for Kaguya's attack. While she was of the same, the influx of chakra was quickly healing her. He began pulling a large quantity of chakra into his hands, Kurama's chakra that surged to life at his will. It formed in a single sphere in his hands that rapidly condensed to the size of a marble. Before moving at all, 3 images of himself pulled themselves out of his back as clones. Each rushed at her, but only the real one had the energy of a boiling sun in their hands. One tried to punch her in the face while another charged her from behind. She managed to dodge both attacks, but was taken by surprise when the third rammed his horns into her belly. As the real one moved in, ready to hit her with his unleashed power, the clones disappeared. He then shoved his palms into her sea, fusing the power with her body. The resulting explosion of energy flattened the surrounding miles of the dimension. As the dust settled, Naruto looked on with curiosity as Kaguya's somewhat mangled body sat a few feet away. But it wasn't S. She moved and stood before her body suddenly swelled and expanded. He turned and took off as she rapidly turned into a monstrous and rabbit-like amalgamation of the other tailed beasts. Naruto planted his feet on the ground, spun around, reared back, and brought his fist down to the ground. The ground caved in before shooting back up in jagged pillars that shot in a line towards Kaguya, tearing through much of her mass. Though she released a roar of pain, she easily destroyed the rocks and started sending fists and tails to try and destroy him. He was easily able to leap out of the way and avoid her attacks. One came down he couldn't avoid, instead punching up into the tail and sending a shockwave through the appendage. They were still at a stalemate, something Naruto could no longer stand. He could go on for days in this stalemate without getting tired, but he didn't want to. He refused to. And his plan was put into place. Break. Deodara, what are the limitations for your explosive clay? Naruto asked. What do you mean, Azukage my man? Deodara asked. I mean, what's the biggest explosion you've ever made, and can I make one bigger? Deodara smirked. Naruto my man, I like the way you think. Break. Naruto backed up before flashing through several hand signs. Suiton, great exploding water colliding wave. The crashing waves were not directed towards Kaguya herself, but seemed to crash harshly against the ground itself on purpose. Sutanel Uzumaki destruction. The tides turned rapidly and started digging into the ground, churning up the ground and making it soft under the force. Naruto dove into the water and sank to the bottom, shoving his hands into what had now become dirt and soil beneath the waves. His palms fell open and began absorbing the soil and clay, even taking in some of the water around him. Break. Takezawa stood in a clearing at the roots of the Shinju. He put down a teacup and looked up at it. So what will you do now that your heart is no longer inside Kaguya, but rather, within your own body? There was a pulse through one of the vines to his head. Yes, that is as you have always done. He sighed. I'm so sorry. The mistake I made so long ago caused all of this. I should have listened to you from the start. A pulse. You always were too forgiving of me. I was your servant and I asked the ultimate thing of you. I should have listened to you. But this time around, I'm going to set things right. That's why, as much as I want to serve you for the rest of eternity, I have to go to my wife. I must stop her. Pulse. He smiled. You always were so understanding. Break. Naruto felt his body swelling and becoming full of the material he was taking in through his hands. He removed himself from the ground, a crater in the area where he had been draining the ground. He shot upwards and into the air, wondering why Kaguya had yet to mount any kind of attack up to now. She was still floating in the air, but was removing herself from her monster form, her previous form leaving behind a massive truth-seeking ball. Naruto held out his own hands and began spewing out explosive clay, willing it to take form before him. It shifted at first to the form of a snake, and then a large but deformed animal, then a bird, and finally stopping at the form of an incredible dragon. Break. The size of it was more than anything Deodara had ever seen. He was jumping in glee and shouting in excitement. This art will be glorious. It's going to be amazing. Shine brightly and obliterate that bee with art my man. Yeah. Break. Naruto was bursting through the air, flying towards the destruction and creation that Kaguya was getting ready to use against him. The moment he made contact with it, he activated one of the paths of his Rinnegan and began draining the chakra from it. He gave a simple mental command and the clay dragon came crashing into Kaguya, snapping its jaws shut around her and flying a distance away. Bone speared through the dragon from inside in a bid to escape, but it did nothing to help as it suddenly coiled around itself and began to glow. The explosion shook the area, forcing Naruto to shield his eyes. That should buy some time, not a cheap commodity to say the least. He continued to drain chakra from the sphere but reared back as a bone went flying past him. He looked over to see Kaguya holding out her hands, small pieces of bone sticking out of the tips. Help me out, Kimimaro. He kept one hand on the sphere while the other formed a shield of bones that deflected the bullets flying from Kaguya's fingertips. As he found a break in the fire, he made the shield splinter and fire off towards Kaguya. She easily dodged, reappearing behind Naruto, ready to S him. Without any warning for Naruto nor Kaguya, a clone fell out of Naruto's back. It looked like Naruto but with his own distinct features to set him apart. The clone grabbed Kaguya's wrists, laughing darkly. You might make me feel alive, but I'm getting real tired of your S. Kichigai? Naruto asked. Kichigai lifted his leg and kept a good grip on Kaguya's wrists as he kicked her in the sea. He then pulled her close and S his forehead into her own. That's right. I have no illusions about my survival now, but don't think for one moment I'm going down with the ship. I intend on tearing the iceberg a new one. He let her go, spinning and hitting the heel of his foot against Kaguya's head, sending her flying. She righted herself and flew back towards Kichigai, blocking his next punch. She turned and kicked him in the ribs. He rebounded, tried to punch her face, his fist caught by Kaguya and redirected as he was S in the sea. No! Naruto shouted. Naruto Uzumaki. If you fail I'll be waiting on the other side to KU. Kichigai S Kaguya, planting an explosive tag across her face. The explosion sent her flying towards the ground, leaving her stunned for only a moment. She corrected herself and realized that her truth-seeking ball was going to lose the power needed to destroy everything and create it anew. She flew back to it, flowing her power into it. Naruto knew if this went off before he could drain it, there was no telling what might happen to himself. But as he drained, Kaguya continued to fuel it. It began to destabilize, and, in realizing that fact, Kaguya forced as much of her chakra in one burst as she could into the ball before opening a portal behind her. She would leave him to here, though it was regrettable that so much chakra that belonged to her would be lost. Naruto felt more than saw what Kaguya was trying to do. Chains shot out of his shoulders, speeding around and trying to ensnare Kaguya. At Zetsu's warning, she twisted and all but escaped as one wrapped around her wrist. The chains retracted at blinding speed, and Naruto absorbed what he could as he kept his hand touching the sphere while shooting around it. As he reached Kaguya, he collided with her midair and used his own momentum to carry them both through her portal. Break. Takezawa walked out from between the Shinju's bark, meeting no resistance as he did so. He took a deep breath and looked around. It was all quiet and calm. But to break that calm, a portal opened not too far away. Kaguya and Naruto came crashing through, creating a massive crater on impact. Naruto was the first to rise, having landed on top of the woman. He only stood there for a moment before she lunged and punched him, sending him flying backwards. He twisted in midair, forcing himself upright as he stayed floating in the air. Let the world look on with fear as an uncertain future rises from your ashes. He began building up every reserve, concentrating every ounce of power and drawing what he could from the tree and every person sealed within him without actually damaging them. It wouldn't be enough, and he was more than sure of that. Not yet, at least. It would take more than some would think he should give. But what choice did he have? But he let go of his grip on that power as Takezawa began walking in front of them. Kaguya stared at Takezawa. He walked up to her before her across the face, shocking her and Black Zetsu. Kaguya, my love, you were wrong. All of the things you feared, everything, you let them consume you. Takezawa said. Are you trying to reason with her, Skull? Naruto asked. Kaguya was still a little stunned. This wasn't possible. How was this man communicating with her visions? Or were they both visions? How long ago had it all ended and her mind simply started playing tricks on her? Yes. All I need is a little more time. Oh well, Naruto said, walking up to Kaguya and looking down at her. He then turned back to Takezawa, his expression and voice cold and You had your time. She has to answer for what she and, by extension, Black Zetsu did. To the Uchiha and Senju, to her sons, to the world, to me, and to them. To my friends and family. Naruto, please understand. I'm sorry, Skull, but not everyone got off scot-free. Images appeared behind him of several people. Through both Naruto's and Kaguya's connection to the tree, even Madara appeared. The Jinchuriki, the Akatsuki members, Obito, so many people who had been changed because of Black Zetsu and Kaguya. A flaming image of Hagoromo stood behind Naruto. They all spoke at once in a chorus of voices. She was brilliant, and we trusted her, but she lied to us. She twisted us, and used us, manipulated us for her own purposes, and for what? For this shadow of a world where everything is stagnant and nothing moves. In this world she was so afraid if she chose to eat it. No, she needs to pay. Kaguya let tears flow from her eyes. There was no way that this could really be Takezawa. Why couldn't the nightmares just leave her be? Finally losing it, the area exploded as Kaguya got ready to proceed with the battle. She was going to end all of this. Break. Gaara, are you prepared? Naruto asked. Yes, but know that I object to this. I know you do, but there is no other way. There is this path and where it leads. But my path is set. I will clear the way so that everyone else has a choice in the matter. Neither of us had a choice in our origins, but know that both of us have a choice in our end. Gaara shed a tear for his friend. I'll miss you, my first friend. But you make sure that none of this was done in vain. There is no other solution. Break. Naruto's two clones appeared at his sides, dragon wings coming from their shoulders to maintain allude. While a third clone pulled itself from Naruto's back, the first two began flooding his body with a steady flow of chakra. The new one moved in front of the original and began forming hand signs. Kaguya, realizing an attack was about to be made and readied herself for what was to come. But no amount of preparation would have helped. The ground exploded, sand for miles around shooting into the sky and curving in before crashing down on Kaguya. She very quickly altered her position through a portal. The moment she re-emerged, the sand redirected and flew at her in the form of a drill-shaped spear. She tried moving again, but was blocked as a large wave of it came up behind her. She moved upward to escape. Escape. I play no fool. Seals dug underground to magnify my father's work. But it requires much more concentration. The clone formed a hand sign. Horation. Kaguya looked into the sky as a blinding light revealed an immense landmass above her. The jutsu, having the millions of pounds of dirt and tree and stone out of the ground, now dumped it out above Kaguya. It took only moments for the debris to pick up speed and come crashing down on her. She held up her hands, using her chakra to burrow through it. While she was out of sight, Naruto suddenly dispersed his clones, being overloaded with all remaining chakra. He built it up all at once and let it go all at once. As Kaguya emerged from the other side of the rock, Naruto was there, glowing with power that had instantly become unstable. He gripped her tea and let his power flow into Kaguya, corrupting, absorbing, and activating all that she still contained as well. He focused on taking what he could of the other tailed beasts into his seals and ejecting them like everyone else. Your power has failed before, as it shall again. Just before the world went white, Takizawa, having used the Shinju's vines to get to that location, grabbed hold of their shoulders. Break. Redemption will forever elude you until you accept what you've done, Kaguya. Naruto said, stepping into the new range of reality. Kaguya stood there, still trying to comprehend what had happened. Where are we? She asked. Naruto shook his head. I don't know. What I do know is that I have simply obliterated our physical forms, just as planned. Just as planned? Takizawa asked, stepping into range. Naruto scowled. You are S2 then. Regardless of your immunity to chakra, thanks to your predating of it, doesn't save you from that. It destroyed everything in contact with me by absorbing their chakra, bioelectrical energy, and life force. It then turns it into pure destruction. So everyone. What was the point then? Everyone. No. I unsealed everyone and everything at the last second. By then, it was too late to stop what was happening. Takizawa hummed in thought. And what happened to Black Zetsu? Destroyed. Naruto said. His will was hers and therefore returned to her. He has no real presence here. So what now? I have finally brought an end to that which is Kaguya Otsutsuki. Naruto said with a smile. The world is free. You can't. Kaguya said, desperately, if these people were truly real, then she had no time to question how or why as she turned to Takizawa. You, more than anyone, knows why this has to happen. She backed away, falling over as she did so. She had to finish her work. She looked at Naruto. And you, so misguided. Humanity's imprisonment is a kindness. Get up. Kaguya. My love, Takizawa said, crouching next to her. It doesn't matter how it happened or who's to blame. This is all we have. You are home. You are my home. You're all I have. And it's finally time to let go. Naruto sighed. You still with to reason with a woman so afraid of the entire world stealing her power. Kaguya, you were a fool. You always wanted to save the world but eventually came to believe the only way to truly do so was to eat it. You thought that the world was too broken to trust. But that was what corrupted and ruined you. He sighed again. What the hell, we're all S anyways. A map of the world appeared in the air at Naruto's behest. It showed the borders of Orb, including the recent conquests. Kaguya, do you see this? I managed to make this in the same world you feared would destroy it. She's coming back. Life is coming back. Peace. Peace is growing. I have managed to bring most of the world together in one common effort. Do you see this? This is the world we know. The one I built. Everything you wanted is happening. Is she completely healed yet? No. But she's trying. Can we call her home? Truly, and with no thought of something else. No. Not quite yet. But someday. Someday I have faith is soon. Tears came to Kaguya's eyes once more. If these two were real and they were S, what reason did she not have to trust him? I thought I had to destroy everything to save the world. There is redemption. This is what it feels like. I'm free. I'm free. And she suddenly faded away, Takezawa fading with her. Naruto looked around. All this time and that's it. He smiled. How anticlimactic. Oh well. Time to see the end of this story. My story. It's finally at an end. Break. Naruto opened his eyes, seeing hundreds of zombies as they got their bearings. He looked around, coming to terms with where exactly he was. Naruto. Hinata said from behind him, confusion laced in her tone. Naruto turned towards her, instantly seeing his reflection in her eyes. He himself had been confused about being there rather than faded away and like Kaguya and Takezawa must be. In Hinata's eyes he saw that he was no longer in a physical body. He seemed to be nothing more than an ethereal being made of what seemed to be chakra, but he couldn't be sure. He looked down at his hands and noticed that the flaming form fit what was happening. There was no physical body to hold the massive amounts of energy that made up his form. It was slowly burning away. His thought was confirmed as a flake, minuscule but apparent, disappeared from the tip of his finger. His judgment told him there couldn't be long. He looked around and saw his people, Azu Shinobi, Suna Shinobi, and so many others. Everyone who had this day and some from before. Hello Hinata. Naruto finally responded. So it's finally over. Hinata wrapped her arms around him, somehow his form solid. She cried, finally able to wrap her arms around him and revel in the warmth and relief that this was all done. It is, she said. Hey, Azukage my man, what's with the new look? Deodara asked, clasping a hand on Naruto's shoulder. He wasn't a zombie. Not everyone had but he was one of the lucky few. I'm not entirely sure, but what are you saying? I'm the strangest thing you've seen all day. Deodara chuckled. No, I guess not. Naruto smiled and then let out a heavy sigh. Either way, I don't think I'll be here much longer, he said. What are you talking about, Kit? How I'm out of the seal can wait. Kurama said. Kurama walked up, many scrambling to get out of the massive beast's way. Shino and Anko were standing on his head, having probably been picked up by him to help search for Naruto. Hey Kurama, bring those two down here, will you? Kurama nodded slightly and lowered his head, letting Shino and Anko step down next to them all. Naruto looked at them all, remembering the times they had all shared and what it all meant now that they had gotten this far. It had all started with punching a mirror and ended now with this. Well, I've got good news and bad news, he said. The good news is that it's finally over. We did it, just like we always do. Yes, Hinata said, still holding on to him. Now we can go home. No, I won't be going with you this time. What do you mean, Naruto? She asked in confusion. Well, that's the bad news, you see. He paused, unable to really say it. Go ahead and lay it on us. Shino said. We're right there with you. Well, that's the problem. You can't be right there with me this time. This is a path I must walk alone and no one else can follow. Shino's face turned to shock as he finally realized. Now, are you serious? At the end, it's all over and now of all times. Yes, Shino. Now, this is the end. There are no other times. What are you talking about, Naruto? Anko asked. Hinata had the same question in her eyes as she backed up a step. As it turns out, there are very few ways to kill a goddess, especially one who has the chakra to create universes at her fingertips. The easiest and probably only way is to meet them head on with enough power built up to self-detonate and drag them down with me. I held back just enough to get you all out of the seals, most of me is scattered to the wind. I guess that's how I'm still here. But my body is gone and this form is fading away. As if to make his point, he held up his hands, the tips gradually flaking off into the wind. No, Hinata said. That's not. She see herself off, the tears that had been forming now see her off as she choked up. Anko stepped forward. You can't. We go together, she said. Naruto shook his head. It's already done. We were supposed to be there for you. All four of us for each other. Hinata said. And we did. Naruto said, smirking. So this is supposed to be goodbye. Kureo said, walking up with Kagari at his side. Naruto turned towards them. Yes, I'm afraid that it is. The time has come to part ways, I'm afraid. Hinata's eyes widened. But what about the Edo Tensei? Orochimaru can bring you back. With what? My body is destroyed and any DNA you can scrape up won't be enough to be effective. If you try saying the Rinnegan as an option, Madara's and Sasuke's are gone along with their B. I would use mine while I still exist, but my soul isn't gone to be retrieved. And there isn't a body for it to go into anyways. What about shadow clones? Anko asked. Those split the use's chakra. I am made up of chakra now. My guess is it would only shorten my time, not that I have much anyways. He looked down, one of his hands missing all of its fingers now. So you've set the world free along with your death. I'm impressed, Kit. Even got the other Biju out. So, what now? Kurama said. Thanks, old friend. And as for your question, I'm not going out on regrets or letting any of these people s for me. I will ensure that I go out on my own terms and on a high note. He formed a single hand sign before glowing brightly, his entire arms flaked away as a massive head sprouted from the ground behind him. Its mouth opened up and let green lights fly outward, entering the zombies across the lands. Within a few minutes and the hundreds of zombies were finished having their souls returned. Light truly returned to Shino and Hinata's eyes. So it had all worked. And all it had taken was all the chakra in the world, more or less. He had brought back very few people who had not been on his side during the wars. Orochimaru was one of them. The deal they had worked out settled with the fact that Orochimaru couldn't lie. Like the Uchiha clan, however, he let many who had been S for quite some time and many of those who were never on his side stay S, and, along with whatever was left of the infinite Tsukuyomi, he cancelled out the Edo Tensei, letting the S once again rest. As it finished, he continued flaking away, the process being accelerated. And for my final trick, where is Okiai? The immortals, where are they? Some of us are right here. Okiai said, walking out of the crowd, the immortal Fu next to him along with Genkaku. Before anything could be said, even Gaara and the other Jinchuriki were walking up. Hello Gaara, Naruto said. Naruto, Gaara said with a nod. Naruto turned back to Okiai and continued speaking. You have been walking this earth for quite some time. Immortality is caused by the corruption of chakra in the genetic code, as was explained to me by Skull. So, I'm going to fix such a mistake. I'm going to make everything right. He glowed once again before a wave, like an aurora, shot across the ground and rapidly expanding over the horizons and passing. But as it did so, it clung to the immortals everywhere it encountered them, even back in Okiai's village. They could feel something leave them, not as pain or being stolen, but leave them nonetheless. By this point, the entirety of one of his legs and even most of his shoulders flaked away. He was mostly gone at this point as he spent such large amounts of chakra. I leave figuring out the rest to you. I don't have much longer, he said. Come closer everyone. The others stepped closer, Hinata helping him stay standing. The others were all trying to wrap their minds around what all was happening. It's over now. So, this is how it ends, Naruto said with a laugh. Shino walked closer, placing an arm around Anko's shoulder. I hate group hugs, but I'll make an exception this time, he said. What do you mean by group? Anko said before Shino pulled them both into Naruto and Hinata, creating a group hug. Kureo and Kagari joined in. I'm so sorry, Naruto said, his left leg gone now. I wish I could stay and change things. But not all is lost. Kureo, Kagari, you two are my sons, not by B, but by mission. When the time comes, work together to help rule Orb. But I do not want you two to fight over your power. That would be cruel. You will not be at the top. Be in charge of one nation and help whomever is in charge after I am gone. Stand by their side as you stood by mine. The two brothers agreed to this. Anko, Shino, do not grieve for me. You were great friends, and I thank you for that. Stand by each other, as you always have. Always keep those people down at the interrogation division in line, he said with a dark chuckle. They also laughed and Anko ruffled his hair. Gaara, take care of yourself and make sure the Bayu are always treated fairly. It took a lot to free them without losing all of the hosts to death. Make sure there is peace. Gaara nodded, tearing up as he did. His first friend was there, Hinata. Naruto said, tired and leaning on her mostly as he was rapidly fading and mostly gone by this point. I would say the same to you that I did to Anko, but I feel you deserve more than that. We agreed that once this was over we would do something. But it seems the only thing I could do was offer you a parting gift in a manner of speaking. I know you love me, and I care very deeply for you. I'm not sure entirely, but I'm almost positive it's love. It's a tricky thing, love. If I had survived, I would be giving you the same thing. I did this mostly on a whim and don't even know why I thought of it. But for some reason, it's so important that I do. Something to leave behind of me for you perhaps. I'm still not sure. What are you talking about? In the depths of the Azukage Tower, where I once grew clones to help ease the loss on this world, I have one last gift for you. Find it and I leave what to do with it up to you. I leave what exactly you do with her up to you. I don't have time nor the desire to make such a decision for you, nor to explain any more. I'm almost out of time. Hinata let it drop, regardless of how much she wanted answers, not wanting to waste any more of his remaining time. No, Naruto, don't leave us. Shino said. You were there for all of us where so few were. And now you will be here for me, when no one else will ever be again. There was a pause. Hinata was saying something, but he couldn't hear the words. Naruto opened his mouth to speak but barely got the words out. It's funny. Despite everything I've heard, your life doesn't flash before your eyes when you are S. That's B. It's your regrets that haunt you in your final moments. Everything you've failed to be. Everyone you let down. Everything you'd go back and change, if only you had more time. But I am everything I wanted to be. I have so few regrets. In the end, all I want is more time to cherish the results I have created. But, I leave everything, the results, the outcome, and everything you do with them, up to you. Fade to black. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.